Hello, my name is Bryce Tullis. Good evening. Today I'm here to invite you to be open-minded about the freedom of speech because sometimes speaking out against others can really come with a cost and you can lose your job or more than that. So today I'd like to open up with a question. That question is, has anything in society ever bothered you? I know something in society has bothered me before. So here I am here to give you some facts about the First Amendment. The First Amendment states, the freedom of speech gives Americans the right to express themselves without having to worry about government interference. The U.S. Supreme Court has often struggled to determine what types of speech are protected. Legally, material labeled as obscene have historically been excluded from First Amendment protection. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment or religion, prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. This is directly from the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. And the First Amendment was established December 15th, 1791. Some of the limitations of freedom of speech are hard to put a finger on, so here's just a brief little list of the limitations of the freedom of speech. Freedom of speech and expression may not be recognized as being absolute, but common limitations or boundaries to freedom of speech relate to slander, obscenity, pornography, sedition, incitement, fighting words, classified information, copyright violation, trade secrets, food labeling, non-disclosure agreements, the right to privacy, dignity, the right to be forgotten, public security, and perjury. Justifications for such include the harm principle proposed by John Stuart Mill, which suggests that the only purpose for which power can be rightfully exercised over any member of a civilized community against his will is to prevent harms to others. And you might ask, what is considered offensive? Because everybody has a different view on things, but the idea of the offensive principle is also used in the justification of speech limitations, describing the restrictions on forms of expression deemed offensive to society. Considering factors such as extent, duration, motives of the speaker, and ease with which it could be avoided. With the evolution of the digital age, application of freedom of speech becomes more controversial as new means of communications arise and restrictions arise. Today, I'm going to tell you about a player of mine that was affected by expressing his freedom of speech. And his name is Colin Kaepernick. Growing up, the 49ers were my favorite team. When Kaepernick came off the bench and finally got some playing time, he became my favorite player. I made sure I watched him play every Sunday. I even made it to a game and met him in Miami when the 49ers played the Dolphins in 2016. Colin Kaepernick and his teammate Eric Reid say they choose to kneel during the national anthem to call attention to the issues of racial inequality and police brutality. Kaepernick opted out of his contract with the San Francisco 49ers March 3rd, 2017, due to the fact that the NFL told the 49ers organization that Kaepernick needed to be released for failing to stand for the national anthem. This really hurt my heart because he was a really good player. He took the 49ers to the Super Bowl. I mean, they didn't win, but man, that's like a dream come true, right? And he lost it all just because of standing up for what he believed for. On May 23rd, 2018, the NFL announced a new policy that requires players and league personnel on the field to stand for the national anthem, but gives them the option to remain in the locker room if they don't want to stand. Teams now have the power to set their own policies to ensure the anthem is being respected during any on-field action. Now, if a player chooses to protest on the sideline, the NFL will fine the player. Next, I'd like to speak on Martin Luther King, which many don't know. He gave his last speech a day before he was killed. It's like the way he was speaking in this speech, it was the mountaintop speech. The way he was speaking in this speech, it's like he knew that he was gonna die soon. So that's pretty crazy to me. But Dr. King's final speech was given in Memphis during a time where it seemed as if the world called for an act of unity. The final passage of the "I've been to the mountaintop" speech looks like a prophecy. He says, "We've got some difficult days ahead, but it don't really matter to me. Because I've been to the mountaintop and I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will, and He's allowed me to go up on the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you." You see, he's saying that he might not get to the promised land with everybody else, but he's so happy that he's speaking out for this because it's changing in the world, and he ends up losing his life. But he says, "I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. And so I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord." That was Martin Luther King's final words in his speech. So I want to conclude this invitation for you to open your mind to the freedom of speech. I want to conclude it with these words. Freedom of speech isn't always free. Sometimes what you love is giving up because you want to voice your opinions and inspire others. Open-mindedness is the key to deleting hate and the key to building understandings. And finally, I want to conclude this with a couple of questions that I have. It can be rhetorical. Just think about it to yourself. Has seeing someone else's struggle ever pushed you to do better? I say yes. Who would stand up for 25 seconds for $12 million? I know I would, right? 25 seconds is about how long the national anthem would take. Give it 20, it depends on who's singing, really. 25 seconds to a minute. And $12 million is how much Kaepernick made if he just stood up for the national anthem. Have you ever believed in something that others had no faith in? Just think about that. And this is how I conclude my invitation.